Hi peoples, it's me, Gabrielle, aka your girl, fabgogg. First off, I want to apologize if my voice sounds a little icky. I am getting over some laryngitis caused by my stupid allergies because, good lord, the pollen this year is ripping me apart. And it's usually not that bad, but wow, this year is absolutely terrible for me. But anyway, let's cut to the chase, because today we have the last OC Lore Talk Speedpaint, at least for now, because there's plenty of other characters that I have yet to truly introduce to y'all, since I'm waiting to introduce them in the main comic. But once that eventually comes around, you guys might want to learn more about said quote-unquote new characters, so if there's enough interest, I can start these up again when the time comes. But as for the main players in the story, you will all have met them at the end of this video, the main six, because today we have Mr. Keith Logan, but better known as Kilo. So I first made Kilo back in 2019, and his name started off as Kilo. He was half of a chaotic duo that I made with my friend at the time. She had made her character, his name was Analog, so I was like, okay, like, kind of fitting the theme of that. I don't know, it kind of felt right and it clicked. And then I was like, oh shoot, like, he needs an actual name. But I never got around to it until, I guess, like 2-ish years ago, maybe sooner. I don't really keep track, because in the span of 2018 to 19, I made so many new characters. So I decided to bring Kilo back around and give him a new life, because his backstory was like non-existent. The most defining feature about him was that he wore a paper bag on his head, which is still cool, but I mean, he doesn't anymore. But maybe I'll bring that back. I don't know. It wouldn't really fit into the story at all, but we'll see. I decided to give him a new life. I really liked his character design, and I felt that it would be a waste not to contribute him somehow into this new story that I had. So that's when I decided Kilo was going to be Seth's right-hand man. But we will come back around to that in a bit. First, we have to cover this guy's basic info. At the beginning of the story, he is 22 years old, and since Act 1 takes place in mid to late April, his birthday is coming up. So he'll be 23 in no time. Speaking of which, his birthday is May 27th, so he's a Gemini. And he's constantly at battle with himself, even for how indecisive he is. While he can be pretty outgoing most of the time, he may come off as a bit shy some other times and a bit introverted, but he is quite competitive and in a different way than Seth. Like, if anything, he gets a thrill from following the majority of people, because he also is, like, a people pleaser. And, you know, another thing, which is definitely not a good trait, but it helps with his indecisive nature, I guess. So if he can't make up his mind, he just goes with the majority. Another trait that could be good or bad is that he's quite the thrill seeker. He hates being bored, he hates stability, and he hates consistency. And he has a very hard time with commitment. So, you know, even being part of a highly strict and regimented police force, aka the Despotero Police Department, you would think he'd go insane working this job, which is partly true, but we'll touch more on that later. So his MBTI type is that of an INFJT, but I feel like that could also be exchanged with an ENFJT. Or A. I don't know. I feel like he's pretty flexible when it comes to that, because, you know, he's constantly at battle with himself, and, you know, personality, he has issues with that. But also, little side note, one of my lovely friends in the comments brought to my attention in the last video that the Myers-Briggs score thing, I've been saying in all of my videos MTBI, which is so silly, because it's like, it's explanatory in itself that it's like MBTI, like Myers-Briggs, yada yada yada, you know the rest, whatever. But what can I say? I'm silly and funny and a little goofy, and I make mistakes, but that's okay. At least I know now, 5 videos later. Plus, when it comes to personality stuff like that, astrology is really my strong suit, even though the whole MBTI score thing makes so much more sense rather than just saying, oh my god, I am so unhinged, guys, I'm so sorry, but it's just because I'm a Sagittarius, I swear. Because that just sounds goofy. But at least I'm self-aware about calling myself out for my Cancerian attributes and how I have to cry like once a week to feel normal. Anyway, since he is an INF JT. That means he's trying to make his mark on the world. He's very ambitious. However, with being a Gemini, that kind of conflicts with what to be ambitious about, as he has a lot of, trouble with commitment and direction and really where to go, and he can't really make up his own mind with things. He has difficulty with that, but he's also very addicted to the chase of things, and that plays a big part in his obsession with Seth, I guess you could call it that, but I more so see it as like an admiration thing, creepy admiration thing. Seth has strongly set goals, and Kilo strongly agrees with them, so his indecisive nature is put aside to follow and help Seth achieve these said goals. Speaking of which, him and Seth aren't, too different, especially like in physical build, but I would say Kilo is more like built, like, I don't know, Seth is like kind of lanky, but Kilo's more built, but not as built as like Iggy or Jace. He's more on the lean side, light on his feet, that kind of thing. He stands at 5'10" and is 170 pounds. Oh my god, Gabrielle having a male OC with a height that doesn't start with a 6. That is so crazy, and I am so funny for that. And I swear, before people start attacking me, I do have short kings and tall queens in this story. I just have yet to introduce them, and I am a tall queen myself at a whopping 5'11". And that's another thing. I get a lot of comments saying like, oh my god, Wattpad height differences be like in the comments of my videos and pictures. Like, yeah, it's true. I love me some completely polar opposite couples and height differences. But also, I'm just so used to being around tall people. Like, my sister and my mom are pretty much the same height as me. My dad is the same height as Iggy. My brother is like an inch taller than him. And then my boyfriend is the same height as Jace. So I just gravitate towards tall people because that's just what I'm used to. But that's not a crime, because tall people exist. We are alive and well, and yeah. So anyway, I digress. Going back to Kilo, his childhood was not all that bad. That is, until he was around 10-ish years old, where his life kind of started to fall apart.
Oh my god.
His parents both served in the Despotera Police Department. His dad was from Jamaican descent, and his mom's from Trinidadian descent. Also, his mother used to be the police chief before she passed away. Both his father and mother were highly regarded and respected in the force, and from their passing, due to terrible complications from the Civil War, Kilo was left with very big shoes to fill. His father passed when he was 10 years old, and as a memento, Kilo's mother passed down his father's chain to him to keep, as a little keepsake thing. And there was I guess an 8-ish year gap between his father's passing and his mother's passing. Her mental health started to really spiral in this period of time, and the pressure of her position, as well as, her husband's death, took a toll on her mental and physical well-being. And when Kilo was around 18 and only 2 years into training in the police force, she had passed. So even with Kilo's decisive nature, he knew what he had to do. He had to follow in his parents' footsteps and avenge them in whatever way he could. He knew the South had to pay for the destruction that they had caused during the war, and after years of tension dissipating, not many people were on the same page as him. Sure, he was indecisive, but he knew holding this grudge against the South was the right thing to do, at least, in his perspective. So eventually he would work his way up to power in the police force, and something would eventually be done with the South under his order. Foreshadowing. Many of the other officers shared the same viewpoint as Kilo, but of course they could really only follow the orders of the executive board, and more so William Hayes, the man with all the money and power, and the president of Despotera, which is, again, Seth's father. So you could imagine the excitement Kilo feels when he finally meets Seth, finding out that they're both on the same page and passionate about getting revenge on the South, because, Seth feels the same way about that, and the leeches that they are. So that's where his little obsession comes into play. Seth was the key for making his dreams come true. And while the dreams were pretty screwed up on Kilo's behalf, Seth made him feel seen, heard, and acknowledged, and shared the same viewpoint. And for people-pleasing Kilo, that's all he needed to be forever loyal to Seth. And while Seth does pretty much everything with selfish or malicious intent, we got a good case of Stockholm Syndrome going on with Kilo for sure at this point. But as I'm writing this script for this video, I'm realizing how short this video is going to be, or at least, like, I don't know, I might have to elongate it, I don't know. But not only because the drawing only took me 45 minutes, but I mean, I've been training myself to crank out art in a short period of time because this comic is going to require that. But also, Kilo's lore has so many spoilers, and it comes in later in the story, or at least in Act 1, so there's not too much I could share other than, like, his back story and deal. But as far as his motives and, like, how that comes to be, you're gonna have to just wait and see how that plays out. So, on to some information that doesn't have any spoilers. His music taste. Kilo loves funk music, he loves horrorcore, rap, and he definitely has a soft spot for some good old emo music. I feel like that's a common theme amongst all of my characters, but whatever, screw it. They all had an emo phase. No, they didn't. Not all of them. Kiko for sure did not have an emo phase, but, you know, she really freaking deserves one. So, artists like Ethan Ross, Istasha, Tyler the Creator, Brockhampton, Gorillaz they really all tickle his fancy. And as far as the good old emo goes, he, you know, likes the classic staple emo bands, Sleeping with Sirens, Pierce the Veil, Bring Me the Horizon. Y'all know the vibe. So Kilo's character development and changes he makes throughout the story are definitely very extreme. And like I mentioned before, all with obsessive intent, but he's a really cool character, and I'm so happy that I found a place for him in this story, and I was able to flesh out his character, backstory, and personality. And same is for the case of the other members of the Dispatera Police Department. They are all older, repurposed OCs that I made back, I don't know, like 5 years ago, and that I have fleshed out for the sake of the story. And it all makes me really excited because I'm able to utilize these characters and their designs and give them a new breath of life when they otherwise would have been forgotten, thrown into the abyss, and never to be seen again. But alas, they are here, and they are here to stay, with strong motives, important purposes, and great personalities. And I am beyond excited to share this with all of you, in due time, of course. But today, when I post this video, actually marks day 1 of me starting the final production of this comic, like the full final drawings and everything, even though I technically haven't, like, finished the storyboarding. But it's okay because time and crunching, and I gotta get this show on the road. And I'm also just so excited. So it's definitely going to require a lot of hard work and sleepless nights, but the fact that I'm actually making this happen and building a fan base to load up the hype train for this comic has me in absolute awe. So I'm saying I'm excited so much, but I really, really am excited for the future of what I have planned, not only for this story, but also for this channel and the content that I want to produce. And I know I've said it time and time again, but I want to say it again right now. Thank you guys so much for your continued support, your lovely comments, and your enthusiasm towards this project of mine. This really is a dream come true for me, and I am only getting started. So on that note, I will see you guys in the next video, and for that I will have to figure out what I want to delve into next, either history lesson or maybe Sims stuff, because that is something I put a poll on in my community tab, so go vote on that if you want to. But yeah, I'll figure it out. Maybe I'll do some storyboarding stuff because I know there's interest in that, so we'll see. But anyway, I will see you in the next video. Ciao, ta-ta, toodles.